It's your boy here with a startup tier list where I use real world data and 10 plus years of juggling projects to dissect which business types are a safe-ish bet and which you should avoid at all costs in 2025. Essentially, what business would I launch if I had to start again with the objective of making £1 million annually because it's a nice round number? And if you don't know me, I'm Joel. I've started 2 businesses over the last decade, my first becoming an ASOS.com partnered brand. And I've since been a growth advisor for over 100 startup teams who have gone on to make millions and billions and trillions, and probably not the last 2. I haven't actually bothered to add it all up. I'm also an NED, I've got an MBA, and I've had 4 STD. Now, you're wondering if your business type is going to be on the list. Chappy has given me a list of the most common businesses that have been started by first-time founders in 2025. Okay, let's get straight into it. We are going to start with the rarest and work our way up to the most common. So in 2025, only 1.8% of businesses that have been started have actually been SaaS. So the pros: recurring revenue model. So pretty much guaranteed cash flow once you get to a certain point. There is huge scalability once you get some customers on board and once you get the actual platform made. The median annual recurring revenue growth rate for SaaS startups once you get past the first development stage is 144% year on year. That is unheard of in pretty much every other industry. And that is why SaaS is so popular with some of the best in the world. The cons: hugely high technical barrier if you're not a technical founder. Building a software platform, if you don't know anything about software, getting easier nowadays, but still not easy. I've actually built a software platform before. It was quite difficult still. SaaS is a very crowded space at the moment, so you need a strong USP or differentiator. The good ideas are still out there, but execution, as with most startups, is everything. And if you're not technical, it's extremely difficult. I would also say, in general, if you were to start a SaaS business, you are going to wait the longest possibly out of all this list for any revenue to come your way. But overall, looking at the statistics, it's got the fastest growth potential once you're at a good position. And that is also why it's difficult, but I have to put it in A. If you have the skills to make this work, you can make a lot of money with a very small team. So SaaS, I'm going to have to slap that right in the money pile of A. Next up is property. So this is the second rarest on the list. 4.6% of businesses in 2025 that have been started are property. This includes managements, sourcing companies, everything in the property sector. Now, here in the UK, the property market is pretty solid in terms of consistent growth. It's not mind-blowing, it's not exploding, but it is a safer play than SaaS, for example. You could lose some money, but it's a lot less likely you're going to lose money in property than with pretty much every other business model that I'm going to go through today. Mainly because it's a tangible asset, it's trusted by governments, banks, investors, etc. It is a physical thing, and you can put a value on a physical thing much easier than some of the other businesses. There's always going to be consistent demand because people need to live places, they need to work places. Yes, it fluctuates through the pandemic, etc. But there's always going to be property as a basic human need. The cons to it: at times it can feel like the government has got your balls in their hand. I know this because I run a property investment company. We are at the whim of whatever they decide at times, with loads of regulations, interest rate changes. And the major con is it's extremely slow to scale. Unless you're starting with a large amount of capital, it's hard to explode or build a large company very fast with this. So it's much more of a long-term play. Considering our objectives are making 1 million per year annually, I'm going to put property in C. Okay, next on the list, food and drink. And this is kind of hospitality and restaurants, not D2C or e-com or retail food and drink. Now, firstly, I need to bust a myth. I only found out today that it's not true. There's a myth that 90% of restaurants in the UK fail in their first year. Even though that's not true, the numbers still aren't great. In the UK alone, approximately 60% of all restaurants close their doors within 12 months, and nearly 80% of those within the first 5 years. So, if you're in the UK starting a restaurant and you're looking at all the average stats from around the world, be careful because it's very different in the UK than it is in the US, for example. In the US, according to the same database, only 17% of restaurants fail within their first year, which is obviously drastically different. The only explanation for that is because you Americans love to eat. Food and drink in the hospitality sense. Some pros, I guess there's universal demand. We all need to eat. You get a loyal base of local customers, but at the same time, that can be a con. You can only really sell to a certain geographic region as far as a delivery moped can go before your food gets cold. In reality, even if you succeed, the margins are reasonably low in hospitality. And I say reasonably low, drastically low. There's loads of regulations and health issues you have to jump through. And in reality, the nature of the job is just long hours and loads of stress and not very much money. I'm going to slap this right at the bottom. I would not start a restaurant. I've heard too many horror stories. And now I've read into the data, it does seem as bad as people are saying. Okay, now 8.8% of businesses started this year have been construction or trade. That doesn't surprise me at all. Actually, I thought it was going to be a little bit higher. I'm going to lead this one with a bit of a surprise and say, actually, in the UK, the construction industry has declined over the last few years. It's the only one on the list that has declined, and that is never a good sign when you're getting into business. Let's just say that you started a business, you got to a certain point, and then you stopped pushing it. What do you want to happen each year? You want to naturally grow without putting any more effort or any more spend into marketing. In any sort of declining market, you are always fighting a losing battle. So each year will be more difficult than the last. Having said that, if you want money fast, this is an excellent way to get it. If you are picking the right trade as well, maybe that we can be a bit more niche about those demand levels, and some of them may be rising. And just anecdotal evidence, because I work in the property industry and I hire a lot of construction teams, they are constantly busy. They are booked up for 6 months in advance. Their prices are going up and up. They have no issue getting work at all, which is surprising considering their level of marketing skills and communication. Sorry, guys. The major con for starting a construction or trades business is the scalability. There's so many humans involved. The operations of it are really going to hold you back when you're trying to get past a certain point. We're trying to get to 1 million a year, so I'm going to go quite low here. If your goal was lower than getting 1 million annually, I might bump it up to B. 10% of all companies are in the coaching and education space. A space that I know very well, if any of you know what I'm up to at work nowadays. Let's start with the amazing growth rate. It's got a 17% annual compound growth rate at the moment, which is excellent. However, it is also extremely saturated. Take my word for it. It is not as easy as you may think when you start out. I guess some of the major pros: low startup costs to begin with. It's your expertise you're selling, essentially. Obviously, it depends how you package it, but you can start with pretty much nothing. There's often very high margins on info products, or if you manage to put your knowledge into a repeatable product somehow, the margins can be excellent. But the cons with it being so crowded is extremely hard to stand out. Credibility and trust is everything, and that takes time to build. You probably have to start a content strategy. You need to either be extremely well known, or you have to start the journey to becoming extremely well known if you want to do excellently in this. Another con is that it's difficult to scale beyond yourself at a certain point. So often you're just trading time for money, and you've got yourself quite a stressful job. It might be a high-paying job, but it's still a stressful job. Removing yourself from that equation is difficult in this context. I am going to slap it in B tier for making £1 million as a first-time business owner. Now, this one was a surprisingly small percentage to me. 13% of all businesses are agency and freelance. They've been batched together in this data. Agencies are in demand, especially if you have a very niche offering, not just a general marketing agency or whatever it is. Most companies would prefer to just get an agency in rather than the headache of hiring staff, finding out you've hired the wrong staff. You just want somebody with a proven record of doing this exact job time and time again. You can see all their reviews. You can see that it's worked for other people. Their system works. Implement it now. Get the results. Move on. That is happening more and more nowadays. If I was to give some pros and cons of this, the pros to this would be that it is the fastest route to cash flow, probably on par with coaching, maybe a little bit ahead. If you have a service that people actually want, you will get paid the quickest. You are paid for your time again and for what you provide in the early days of agency. It's got a very low barrier to entry, which is great for younger, less experienced startup founders. The good thing about agency is that in some context, you can spin the agency into a SaaS product in the future, which has some amazing upside potentials. Cons, operationally, it's all about humans in the early days, which is, humans are always the problem in businesses. Scaling is extremely difficult. Your staff just keep quitting in agency. The staff churn in this industry is extremely high. I've seen it firsthand. And there's a lot of what people call feast and famine cycles. So you could be doing really well, and then your clients just leave you for whatever reason. There's another solution that hit the marketplace, and then suddenly you've got nothing, and that happens all too often. But for making $1 million, low barrier to entry, you can get there reasonably quick. I'm going to sit it in B tier along with coaching. I think they're kind of similar. It's just what you actually supply to the end user is slightly different. And on to the most common business that started in 2025 is e-com and retail, with 22% of all new businesses being in this sector. Another bit of data actually is that 15% of all current business owners work in e-com and retail. So those two numbers suggest that it is rapidly increasing over the past 12 months or so. Now, if you know what Grow does as a company, you're expecting me to just take ecom and slap it in S tier, but that's really not the case. I've been in this game for long enough to know that nothing in business is perfect. There's always pros and cons, and that is why nothing gets the S tier today. I've been burned way too many times. The pros are that it's easy to start because pretty much any moron can set up a website nowadays. The barrier to entry is reasonably low. You can just use other people's products until you get enough money to create your own. The market size is the largest out of any of them we've spoken about today. You can ship to every corner of the globe. It's limitless in a way. The way we share information through social media and social commerce nowadays means that e-com can go from nothing to exploding overnight. That is a possibility, not a probability. Some cons though, you are always at the whim of your products and your suppliers. There's intense competitions. There's often very, very thin margins, especially in retail, not so much in e-com, but at the same time, fulfillment centers, property, etc. It's all going up. The costs of goods to make it is all going up. And the competition from China is going up. So it's getting harder and harder. There's loads of logistics and fulfillment headaches of getting a physical product made from nothing, getting it to people, dealing with returns. And often, and especially in the early days of business, you are very reliant on paid ads and algorithms and things that are just outside of your control. Other platforms, for example. My first business became an ASOS.com partner brand. We started on other platforms. We built our way up across other platforms. We started our own channels, but they were never as strong as everybody else because ASOS obviously brought millions of eyeballs to our products, so we could never compete with that. And eventually it ended up costing us the whole business. So I am going to say, to make £1 million, it is up there with SaaS. SaaS, if you are a technical founder, I would lean towards SaaS. If you're a non-technical founder, I would lean towards e-com. Otherwise, coaching agencies are pretty safe bets. If you're looking to make $1 million, I would ignore the bottom end of this tier list. Oh, and as a reward for getting this far, if you're starting a new business, I've got something extremely important to tell you. It is absolutely business critical that you understand the one simple formula that decides whether your business is going to live or it's going to die. And you can find out about it here.